In non-pandemic times, whenever I have an opportunity to go to a restaurant, I usually do so when I'm not in a hurry, and I'm usually with people that I love to be in conversation with. So if there's a little bit of a delay because the place is busy or our server doesn't get around to us as quickly as one might hope, that's okay because we're there to spend time together and have conversation. Every once in a while, though, I find myself at a restaurant because I'm maybe at a conference or one of our Senate assemblies, and there's a limited number of places to eat, and there's a narrow window in which to get that meal accomplished. And in those cases, I find myself trying to get the attention of the server, right? You can wave a hand, you can look around like, you're looking for somebody, hoping that they will stop by so that I can, with their attention, right, give them a sense of the urgency of time that I carry with me that particular day. Other times, I've had a leisurely meal and then gotten a phone call or a text, something that's urgent that I actually have to go do, but I'm waiting for the server to bring the bill, and there I am again trying to get their attention to give them a sense of the urgency that I have about the things that I need to be about. As people, we call silver and gold precious metals. And I would suggest today that human attention, like me trying to get the attention of the server, that human attention is a precious commodity. It's precious. All of us have probably experienced having a conversation or an interaction with someone who's not giving you their full attention. You know they're not really paying attention or listening to the things that you're saying. At the same time, I hope we all have experienced someone who really is giving us their full attention. They are fully present with us. And what a gift that is, especially if we're in a place of struggle or in need of help and someone is really focused in on that interaction that we're having. That makes that attention precious. It's a gift. So it's a precious gift, but it's also, our human attention, a commodity. I think about advertisements, whether it's billboards, magazines, right? They're all meant to draw our focus and get our attention. I have a phone, and that phone has notifications. Whenever I get a text, if its sound is on, it goes ding, ding. When I get an email, it makes a different sound. When Facebook has a notification, it gives me some little bubbly pop sound. All of those sounds, and if I silence it and it vibrates, all of that is meant to get my attention. And not just to get my attention, but to draw my attention to that device and to that particular application on my device. The people that develop those applications know that our attention is precious and that it is a gift. And they are trying to draw it in and keep it for as long as possible. Because if they can draw in our attention, they can make it into a commodity and make money off of it. Similarly, with all of our social media websites with ads, all of that is focused towards drawing our attention and keeping it for as long as possible. Even if it's just a little bit, that little bit of attention is something that they can turn into a commodity. At the end of this live stream service today, I'll be able to go look and see how many views we had. And a view in this Facebook live stream constitutes 3 seconds. They just need 3 seconds of our attention, right, to count that as having engaged us for a period of time. So our attention is precious. Our attention has become a commodity that is for sale. And it's all about where we bring our human focus. And that then leads me to some questions about our attention. First, if you think about finances, we have regular bills that are set, right? It might be rent or a mortgage, insurance, groceries. That's all money that we have to kind of set aside. But if you have any left over after the things you're obligated to do, we call that disposable income. And the first question that I have today about our attention is whether or not we have disposable attention, right? Each day there are certain things that require our attention. We need to tend to chores around the house. If you have a job, you need to attend to the tasks of your work. We need to attend to paying the bills and cutting the grass and tending to the people in our family. If you have little kids, right, they need your attention. If you have a spouse, right, we have attention that is needed. If you're retired, there still are things that keep you busy, whether it's volunteering or exercising. There's a certain amount of attention of ours every day that gets filled in. But then there's perhaps some disposable attention, some other attention that we can choose to use in what ways we like. Which then gets to the second question, which is how intentional are we about our attention? In any given day, how conscious are we of where our attention is going and how we are using that attention that we have? If I'm honest, many of my days, the things that get my attention aren't necessarily the things that are the most important, but may just be the things that are right in front of me. That phone dings and then I pick it up to see, and next thing you know, I'm texting somebody back and forth or answering an email, and that may have taken me away from something else that had my attention. And I can get through whole days of just tending to the thing that is right in front of me. Sometimes we just get sucked into social media or sucked into gossip or sucked into whatever it is that draws our attention to that thing that is right in front of us. Often, or most of the time, our attention, when it gets pulled to those places, it seems like what's in front of us is urgent. So when my phone dings at me, that feels urgent. I got to go see. Maybe it's important. Maybe it's something that needs to be responded to right now. But the more that our attention just gets carried along by what's in front of us and seems urgent, sometimes the less it gets focused on things that are long-term important and places where we would like to have our attention. Human attention is a precious gift. It's a precious commodity. And I'm not sure we bring a great deal of attention all the time, intention about where we put our attention. All of that is a preface to what is a very difficult gospel text to hear today. It's Christ the King Sunday, and we hear about this King, the Son of Man, coming into his glory, gathering the nations and separating sheep from goats, the sheep being those whose attention has been on the deep needs of the world, on people who are hungry and thirsty and naked, and people who are strangers wherever they are, people who are in prison, people who are sick. They have given their attention to those needs. At the same time, they have not realized that in doing so, they have connected with and served Jesus. On the flip side are the goats who have not given their attention to those deep needs of the world and also have not noticed that Jesus is there present in those relationships. It is very easy for our attention with a story like this to get turned to judgment. Am I a sheep or am I a goat? What do I need to do different? Is that person a sheep or a goat? Oof, glad I'm not that one. I think he's a goat and she seems like she's a sheep, and we end up in these places of judgment. And it can also very easily draw our attention to some end time where we worry about the eternal states of our souls. Now, there's enough other stuff in Scripture where Jesus talks about reconciling the whole creation to God that I have a hard time reading this as a detailed manual about what's going to happen at the end times. And if it's not that, then I have to ask myself, what's happening here? And I wonder if it's not like me trying to get the attention of the server, or my phone trying to get my attention. If it's not Jesus trying to take our limited attention and draw it in. If Jesus isn't telling this story to make us sit back and go, wow, that sounds serious and urgent. What do I need to pay attention to? And having gotten our attention, there's something that happens in this story. Jesus directs that attention to a particular place. He says, now that I have your attention, pay attention, put your attention on the deep need of the world. And while you're at it, there's another layer, right? Pay attention because you might find that that's where I am. So Jesus gets our attention to focus our attention, and in the process for us to pay attention to his presence in the struggles and pains and all of what we see around us. There are layers of this, right? Jesus is trying to invite us to bring some intention to our attention so that we can bring some transformation, or Jesus can bring some transformation into our lives. I would love to tell you that I am fantastic at bringing intention to my attention, but so often I'm not. And what we see is Jesus maybe bringing his intention to our attention. I think especially about the story of the woman with the many, many years of hemorrhaging who is following Jesus, right? He has drawn in her attention as someone who might be able to bring transformation. But his attention is not on her, right? He's walking, he's traveling, he's got other places where his attention is fully engaged. And then she just touches his robe. And just that touch draws his attention. He feels power go out from him, and he turns and he focuses his his attention fully on her, right? He's always intentional about his attention. He is intentional about bringing it to her and lifting her up and sending her away, not just healed, but with a blessing. And this is what we see again and again with Jesus, is that he brings intention to his attention, always bringing it fully to the people that are in front of him. Sometimes that's a healing. Sometimes it's a blessing. Sometimes it's a challenge. Taking those difficult, trapping questions that are asked of him and turning them back on others. He does that because he is intentionally bringing his attention fully to that relationship. As Jesus gets closer to the cross, the intention of some of the people turns away from him as a healer and a presence and towards him as a threat. So they hang him on the cross with the intention of putting him to death. And Jesus fully keeps his attention on us in that cross, right? Fully meeting us in the deep need of the world. And God's attention, though, is always on the side of life, always drawing and inviting us to new life. And that's what happens in the resurrection. When we celebrate Holy Communion, we talk about a new covenant. God has always been about dragging the people toward life. It's a new covenant and a new covenant. And then Jesus is that new covenant that brings life and forgiveness and love in this sort of ultimate way. So God's attention is always intentionally on us and always on dragging us towards life, so that when Jesus tells this story, it's not about us getting way better at being human beings, but about Jesus gifting us with a precious gift of God's attention, telling us that we matter. In particular, in this gospel passage, we find out that the people that don't matter in our culture, right? The homeless people, the hungry people, the thirsty, naked strangers, prisoners, people who are sick, the people who don't make the list of the best of the best, the top 50, whatever, all those things we come up with, that those people matter to God. And not only do they matter, but we matter. And not only do they matter and we matter, but all of what we do matters. In this story where Jesus gets our attention, I think he's trying to say, be intentional about where you put your attention and about how you act, because it matters deeply. Not because it changes our relationship with God, that is the gift of God's intentional attention to us, but because it matters to the world around us. As God works through us, our attention becomes a focus of God's grace that flows through us. So this text then becomes not something to be scared of about the end times, but a call to urgency, to see that our actions matter, that we can bring transformation to the world, that Jesus is working through us and our intentions, because Jesus gives us this gift of life to share. We will fail at it again and again. There will be many a day where I personally just get drawn from thing to thing and have absolutely no intention about my attention. But God's persistent attention to us, intentionally full of life and grace, shapes us and molds us and transforms us to where just our little bit of intention can have a great deal of blessing that we can carry into the world with the attention that Jesus gives us to share. May we be blessed to be intentional with our intention full of God's grace that we can share with the world so that all people might know God's love. Amen.